Hello, this is OverlordBou, and we're back with another ship review video, and today we'll be looking at the new Premium Tier 10 USDD, the Forrest Sherman, or the F. Sherman. So this ship will be available from the firepower containers with the release 11.1, which is going to be around February 16th. Now, after a 2-week period after the release of 11.1, you can then get the ship for coal or doubloons. The coal price will be 232,000, or you can get it for doubloons for 34,950 doubloons. Now, I would highly recommend the ship for coal, and I would not recommend it for doubloons, and I'll be going over that in today's video. So the armor layout is pretty simple, 19mm armor all the way around the ship, with the superstructure being 13. And let's look at the commander build real quick. The commander build, we have main armament, hydrocruiser search, aiming systems, propulsion, concealment, and main battery modifications. For the commander build, I would do priority to incoming fire alert with preventative maintenance, last stand, survivability expert, superintendent, concealment, adrenaline rush, and the AFT. Now, with the build out of the way, we're going to watch the replay while I go over the stats and on why I would recommend this ship. So, the armor and survivability, as I said earlier, it has a 19mm bow, stern, and hull with a 13mm superstructure. The ship has 24,900 HP pool. It does have a very high HP pool for a DD, but it is also relatively large and easy to hit as well. It is somewhat poor survivability overall due to how large the hull is, and it does have a low maneuverability, which I'll talk about later. Even her high HP pool isn't enough to offset her weakness. Let's talk about the main armaments. They are 3 single 5/54 guns with an AX wide layout. You do have a gun range of 12.6 kilometer range base with a 1.5 base reload with a 4.5 180 turret traverse. Now the guns can fire 26 degrees off the bow, 30 degrees off the stern. And all turrets are 360-degree turrets, so they can all do complete circles, which is pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with that. Always love 360 turrets. Now, the HE on this ship does 1,800 damage with 21mm HE pin with a 9% fire chance and has a 216,000 HE DPM. Now, the SAP on this ship has 2,700 damage, 36mm SAP pen with 65 to 75 degree ricochet, and with angled, the SAP DPM is 324k. Now, this is very good, and the ship does have very good shell ballistics, similar to the Kaba or the Grozavoy if you want to compare it there. It also has excellent firing angles. It also has the same HE DPM as a Gearing, with only having 3 guns. It has very high SAP DPM, effective versus other DDs. And all guns can rotate 360. Overall, the ship has excellent guns, especially her SAP. The SAP will be her main ammo choice, tearing apart any DD or cruiser you fight. The HE is still a useful backup round for bow in targets and or to start fires on battleships. Let's talk about the torpedo tubes. There are 4 single launch 553mm torpedoes, 2 per side, facing the forward bow, so you can kind of rush at targets and kind of just try to nuke them if you can, or kind of brawl with it in a way. They do 17,000. They have 17,900 damage with a 16.5 kilometer range. These torpedoes go 66 knots and have a 73-second reload. Now, these torpedoes have an extremely narrow firing arc and can only fire between 40 and 45 degrees off of the bow on both sides. And it has the same torpedo characteristics as a Gearing. Although the Sherman uses a Gearing torps, they have limited effectiveness due to the narrow torpedo firing arcs and light broad weight salvo. You'll have to turn the ship to use the torps pretty much because of how narrow the degree is. Basically, don't expect much from them. In fact, don't even bother using them if you're engaged combat. Like, if you're rushing a target bow win, then yes, I could see you using it, but other than that, don't really rely on them too much. Now let's talk about the anti-air. In the anti-air, you get 4 flak puffs, 3 inner, plus 1 outer. The outer DPM is 98 DPS, and the mid is 81 DPS. Now, you do get access to DFAA. Surprisingly, the anti-air is pretty poor due to her low continuous damage. Even DFA doesn't help her too much. But again, if things do run into the flak, it is going to do a lot of damage with the DFAA. The Sherman's A is roughly equal to the gearing in effectiveness, if you want to compare it there. And a bit, she always carries DFA by default. While this gives her above average A for a DD, it's still inadequate for dealing with tier 10 CVs. Like other DDs, the Sherman relies on her maneuverability to dodge CV attacks, though the DFA can prevent follow-up strikes from average CV players. Let's talk about the maneuverability. The ship can go 33.9 knots max speed with a 680 meter turning radius, and also has a rudder shift of 5.3 seconds. It is the slowest DD in her tier bracket, having no speed boost to increase her speed. It also has a slightly above average turning radius, mediocre rudder shift time. Overall, the poor maneuverability due to her sluggish top speed and long shutter tiff time. In addition, lack of speed boost means she can't accelerate as well as most other DDs. Due to these traits, Sherman is arguably the least maneuverable tier 10 DD. She will struggle to reposition and dodge enemy fire. Well, let's talk about the concealment. The base concealment is surface is 8 kilometers and the aerial is 3.8. When you build into concealment, it goes to 6.5 at surface and 3.1 for air. It does have relatively poor detection for standard DD rolls, pretty much for how large it is, but it is relatively good for gunboat DDs. Now let's talk about the consumables. It has a standard DD damage control party of 5 seconds damage con party, with a 5-second immunity period and 40-second reload time. It does have the USDD smoke generator with 2 base charges. It goes 3 if you have Superintendent, and it has a 30-second lay time and 130 seconds smoke puff duration. It also has a 160-second reload time. Note that she carries 1 less smoke than most other DDs, so definitely take note of that. Let's talk about the Hydro. The ship does come with 3 base charges, 4 with Superintendent. The ship detection is 5 kilometers with the Hydro, and the torp detection is 3.5 kilometers. Now, it does have an active time of 100 seconds, with 120 seconds reload. Now, the standard it does have a standard defensive A as well, with 4 base charges, with 5 as Superintendent. It also, whenever you do the DFAA, it does a plus 100% continuous damage, and plus 300% flak damage. In this active time is 40 seconds, and the reload is 80 seconds. So my overall impressions of the Sherman, it's low to mid skill floor with an average skill ceiling. So pretty much the Sherman is a US tier 10 DD focusing on a gunboat playstyle, compared to her more versatile tech tree counterparts. The Sherman plays very similarly to the tier 9 Friesen and Groningen, which I feel very homey with playing. And it shares many similarities to such as high gun DPM, the 5 kilometer Hydro, and a somewhat high service detection of the Friesen and Groningen. So if you're used to playing those ships, this ship will feel pretty natural for you to play. And she makes effective use of both her HE and SAP. The SAP is for fighting DDs and cruisers, the HE for farming BBs and bow and cruisers. As you saw earlier, I also use the SAP on the superstructure of the battleship, so you can make a use of there as well. Though she does get the gearing 6.5 kilometer torpedoes, their extremely limited fire arcs make them impractical to use in most situations. Like the Friesen, the Sherman should generally avoid caps due to her high detection, instead focusing on supporting other DDs or farming larger ships in smoke. Ideally, you want to get within 8 kilometers of an enemy before smoking up and farming them. But definitely be wary of radar cruisers, because if you're spotted by a radar cruiser, like when you're in smoke or you're being radared, you're going to take a lot of damage. Because the problem is that she can take a while to get moving, and being caught in smoke will cost you a lot of HP. And keep in mind that the Sherman doesn't fare well outside of smoke due to her sluggish speed, poor maneuverability, and large hull. Even if she wins the fight, she will likely take significant damage unless she's hidden in smoke. That being said, the Sherman can gunboat open water most BBs past 12 kilometers if necessary, like if you need to secure a kill. The Sherman also functions as a good support DD due to her long smokes and hydro. She can support other DDs when fighting for caps and provide smoke and hydro for her cruiser allies. Just be careful when using her in a spotting role. The Sherman is outspotted by most other DDs and will struggle to disengage without smoke. Overall, she is a solid smoke gunboat DD if left unopposed. She can quickly rack up tons of damage due to her terrifying rate of fire. Randoms, I would say and let's talk about for randoms and ranked and CBs. For randoms, I would say it's very strong as a smoke gunboat. Her DPM can quickly tear apart other ships. For ranked, I would say is above average, good firepower versus other DDs, but can struggle with spotting and repositioning. Now she will definitely struggle against ships like versus Smalllands and Ragnars. But again, the sap can easily tear through the armor of a Ragnar or other DDs, so you can definitely tear into it. But at the same time, if the other DDs know what they're doing, they can also tear the Sherman apart, because the Sherman doesn't come with a heal, while the Ragnar does. And two common DDs seen at the higher levels of League of ranked is Smallland and Ragnars, which are going to be pretty much your biggest threats, or Kavas. So for CBs, I would say no, due to too poor detection to serve as a spotting DD, and is too slow and inflexible for a DPM DD. So again, I would recommend getting the Sherman for the 232,000 coal. Again, you're able to get the Sherman from the firepower containers with release of 11.1, which is around February 16th. And then after 2 weeks, you can get it for coal or doubloons in the premium shop for 232,000 coal or for 34,950 doubloons. And again, I would highly recommend the Sherman for coal. I would not recommend getting it for doubloons because that is a ton of money, and it's just better for you to use coal instead. But again, this is my review of the Sherman. If you guys have any questions or concerns, definitely let down in the comments down below. Well, this is OverlordBou, and I'll talk to y'all later.